50 podcast Leadership Summit. I've been dreaming about this moment, and I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate you being here with me to experience this event. Everyday Leaders 50 and 50 podcast has been developed as an inspirational show to help people develop strategies to overcome everyday obstacles in their lives. Today, my guest will share the disciplines that they've been practicing every day that is allowing them to achieve a life of success. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for pushing that button, for coming and sitting in these seats, for listening to these experiences, for connecting to these influencers. I hope you have the time of your life and learn how to become a leader in your life every day and become that everyday leader. Thank you so much for attending. I look forward to meeting you. Have a blessed 2019.
So I have my easy button, so if anybody freaks out. Many of you I know, some of you I don't, but I really appreciate having the opportunity to connect to you in this special way. My journey began, for those of you that don't know, I just want to go back to last year when I turned 50 years old, January 12th. It was a Friday, it was the second Friday in January, and I thought, there's something more that I'm supposed to do with my 50th year. What's this about? So I created this podcast, which was 50 shows in 50 weeks. And I really wanted to take the opportunity to influence the world. So I reached out to people that I felt like were really making impact in their own domain, whatever they were doing, everyday people. So the journey turned into several weeks of recording podcasts. In April 6th, I was eliminated from my full-time job. And that was a Friday. And then I was interviewing Tiffany Woods, sitting right down here. And I was a little frantic. Like, what am I going to do? But what happened is, the next day, I had already decided to come to this art museum and sign the contract for this program. So the commitment of going all the way through the 50 and 50, staying true to my plan, staying disciplined in the progress, seeing this come to fruition today, it just warms my heart, all the things that I've learned and the people that I've been connected to. So I love this opportunity to share with you. It's the inaugural event. So things that are going to happen in the future, I have a big announcement, which last year when we started this, we wanted to find a website, right, to start connecting the podcast. And we looked for Everyday Leaders as a website. And it had been owned by someone since 2003. And we had an email last week that said on Friday, March 1st at 1:21, this website name will come up for auction. And so yesterday at 1:21, in the middle of all the other chaos, right, you're kind of thinking about like, what did I forget to do? We won the bid. And so now we own everydayleaders.com. And so my dream is like, it's becoming huge. I'm not going to get emotional. But this is an awesome experience. So thank you for being here. And so without further ado, I wanted to just take the time to thank my guests. Some are here that were on the podcast that are not speaking today, but they're here to support. And so I want to share another video with you of Loren Minnix. He was one of my guests that organizes Warriors Hope in Greenwood, Indiana. He's doing some great things. So I'll let him play the video now.
Good morning. My name is Loren Minnix. I'm president of Warriors Hope. Warriors Hope is an organization that I founded in 2006. So to reach out to veterans. So I'm very excited about what Melahni is doing through Everyday Leaders 50 and 50. how she's reaching out to people, how she's trying to put programs together that would encourage others to take a look at their lives and find out how they could be good leaders and how they could help others. We've found in dealing with all different individuals that their health began to come back together when they reached out and helped other people. Because whether we talk about it or not, everybody has some kind of issue. And so we challenge you to be a leader. We challenge you to listen well to the program that's being presented today. It doesn't matter where you are. Somebody's looking at you and listening to you and trying to be a better person. And the better the person you are, whether you say anything or not, they'll see it in you. They will see that something's different about you, and they will want that in their own lives. And that's what a good leader does, is to challenge people to be the best person they can possibly be. So it's a great program. I wish you all the best. God bless you, and have a great day.
He's an awesome guy. Touches so many souls. And so part of this, I want to bring you guys into what I've been experiencing in these influencers. With you should have at your tables when you're registered at the front table with me, the personal growth journey and journal. And so that's going to be an opportunity for you to just kind of think into, as people are talking, I know we've got short segments, but things that you're thinking about in your own life. So it's a great journal. I teach this every Monday night for everyday leaders. It's on a Zoom conference call. And so I thought it was a great opportunity to kind of share that with you guys because it really helps people transform in their life. Also, you received a ticket. And so half of the ticket, there's going to be a drawing after every speaker. And I'll be giving away some leadership books for you. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and have this next introduction video. And this is from my
Today's word is knowledge. Hi, my name is John Maxwell, and Lisa, I know a lady from Long Beach, Indiana, who is a college coach, student coach, sent this word in. And of course, if you're in college, you think of what, Lisa, you're doing. Children, kids, adults, they're in their pursuit of knowledge. Here's what I know about knowledge. It's there for us to attain. It's there for us to achieve. It's achievable by any person. But it's what we do with what we know that makes us successful. In other words, knowledge itself won't make you and I successful. I know a lot of people who know a lot of things, but they don't do much. In other words, they know what to do, but they don't do what they should do, and they don't even do what they already know. And I think sometimes we look at knowledge as an end in itself. If I can know these things, I'll be successful. And what I've discovered is knowing them is just the first step. Doing them, knowing them, doing them. What do I know? What do I do? These are the two steps that help us to be successful. You know, when somebody says take one step and you can make progress, that's not true. If you only take one step, you get stuck. It's the continuing stepping, knowledge and doing what I know and what I do, that continuous stepping that makes us successful in life. So take what you know and then ask yourself, now what can I do with what I know so that I can help people and add value to their lives?
All right. So my mentor, John Maxwell, I became certified with John Maxwell a few years ago. And things that he teaches us are all leadership principles and values. And so the speaker that we're going to have here, Dr. Jeff Valer, one of my classmates from Greenwood High School. And he's a neurologist, he's an author, and he's going to teach us about caffeine and sleep. And so why I thought this video was important and connected to him is because it's early in the morning, right? So he comes up first in the morning, but he teaches so many things that if you take these strategies and walk away, you can actually have a better life because I practiced it. So, Jeff Van Valer, Dr. Jeff Van Valer, welcome.
This is my cup of coffee. This is the real stuff. This is 8:40 is recognize Melahni. You know, we're all leaders. Okay, we were asked to be here. I was asked to be a leader because I wrote this book, and the biggest leader among us is Melahni. And she hasn't been interviewed for a project. I think we need to do that. And but I want to thank everybody. So again, I'm Valer. I'm a neurologist and a sleep medicine physician. And I did something really selfish one day in the office. And I thought, when I was talking to a patient who came in for migraines, now about 45 to 50% of all the patients who come to, new patients who come to see me in the office as a neurologist, they have the singular complaint of headache, and it's usually a migraine headache that they come in for. And I always ask, the more and more gray hair I get, I always ask them about their caffeine. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
We're recording.
Okay. I always ask them about their caffeine and their sleep habits. And it's important to do that because a lot of these patients abuse caffeine and they have abysmal sleep habits. And I thought one day my selfish act was, I'm going to write a pamphlet for these people because I'm tired of going through this spiel all the time. And I realized this pamphlet's going to be 50 pages long. And then it turned out to be 94 pages long when I wrote this book. These are the two covers. I just realized I don't know how to change the slide. There we go. There we go. So neurology and sleep medicine is what I do. But I asked my sister one time, said, hey, I want to write a book about the connection between caffeine abuse, insomnia, and migraine. And she says this, hey, that sounds great, but when people already know that stuff. And I thought, well, yeah, I guess you're right. I guess I'm not going to write this book. But wait a minute. People know this stuff, but they ignore it. They absolutely ignore it. Maybe because it's the common denominator. It factors out. Maybe it's too big to see, like the blue in the sky. Maybe it's just too much. Everybody does it, so why can't I? So let's get down to business. The relationship between migraine headache, caffeine use, and insomnia. I want to talk about all three of these things in turn. And keep me in check here because this is usually a 45-minute talk, but I embellish into an hour and I'm trying to squeeze it down to 15 minutes. All right, so let's talk about migraine. Migraine is a peculiar kind of headache disorder where there's a throbbing nature. It's usually on one side or both sides. There's nausea, aversion to bright light, loud sound, certain smells. I personally cannot walk past a Cinnabon restaurant or a Yankee Candle Company. No, I'm not advertising or negative advertising, but these things kind of go up my nostrils like icicles. You know, they trigger migraines. A lot of people have that kind of stuff. So there are a lot of triggers, a lot of food things, bananas, citrus, monosodium glutamate, nitrates, processed meats, that kind of business. Other triggers, hormones, things we can't do anything about, or things we shouldn't try to do anything about. Weather in Indiana, can't do it. Can't do anything about it. So, but ultimately, migraine headaches is a disorder of arterial tone, blood flow into the brain. Now, if a migraine involves a spasm of an artery, and then the body sends out immune system factors to redilate the artery, and the more migraines you have, the better we get, the more efficient we get at redilating those vessels. And I want you to remember that because what happens is when the spasm goes away and all those dilator factors are there, then you get vessels and a group of vessels that are way too big. You get this throbbing and too much blood flow, and that's what causes the pain. So, as a doctor, I want to give you all instructions on how to worsen your migraine headache disorder. This is always very helpful to tell the patient how to worsen it. Each migraine has a severity, and each migraine has a duration, and each migraine has a frequency, how often it happens. And if you look at this little model of this week and the typical migraine patient, maybe the 9-year-old girl who comes into the office with no bad habits, she might have 4 migraines a week. Now, when she grows up and becomes 26 and she's in the workforce and starts to drink a little bit of coffee, these migraines, or that week might become different. 3 migraines now, as these two become confluent down here. This one gets bigger, that one gets bigger. And over time, you add bad habits that exacerbate migraines. Then you've got this. Well, I only had 2 of them this week, but this one is 5 days long, and that one's even worse. And pretty soon, you got headaches all the time. Now, I drew this picture one time when I should have been studying for a boards exam. But there's this elegant symmetry. You know, caffeine abuse causes sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation causes you to go for more caffeine. And caffeine use causes migraines. And migraines cause you to use things like Excedrin migraine. I didn't say that. Over-the-counter medicines that are full of caffeine, and that causes more headaches. And then the headaches cause sleep loss. And the sleep loss itself is a major trigger for migraine headaches. So each one of these problems exacerbates the other 2. So you get this symmetry, and then I came up with the frowning face in there, so it's all too appropriate. So let's move on to caffeine. Caffeine's a drug, you know. It has desired effects and has side effects. And we want to be alert, we want to focus, we want to have energy in the mornings. Caffeine does things for us. And we love that. We recognize everything it does for us. We give it credit for things it doesn't do for us. And we give it none of the blame. You know, for anything it causes. Now, as a criminal mastermind, caffeine beats Lex Luthor and all these people, and the Superman and all that. But it is a brilliant, brilliant design for people giving it credit and giving it none of the blame for what it does. Let's talk a little bit about caffeine as a creep in superheroes' clothing. There's a little article there on my LinkedIn that came from the actual book that's on the bicycle. Who likes organic chemistry anyway? Should I just okay, we got a couple of hands out there. That's good. Well, when we're awake, the more we're awake, the more we metabolize a chemical called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Now we cleave off a phosphate group, we get energy, cleave off another, we get more energy, and we have adenosine monophosphate, we cleave off that phosphate group, then we have adenosine, which accumulates in the awake brain. And it helps, nobody really knows exactly how, but it helps drive sleep by attaching to these receptors. And while we're asleep, adenosine levels in the brain drop. And if you look at caffeine, and you look at the structure of adenosine, if I flip this molecule around, and there, cover up this big group down there, you got these structures are pretty similar. Caffeine binds to adenosine receptors, and that's the mechanism by which it helps stimulate alertness. And we like that, and then we go overboard. Let's talk a little bit more about caffeine. Caffeine can increase our heart rate, increase blood pressure, causes this insidious sleep deprivation. One of my very favorite things is when people say it doesn't affect my sleep the way it does everybody else. And then they wake up at 3 in the morning and they blame anything but the caffeine. Okay? So it lets us fall asleep. It lets us stay asleep, and then it fragments our useful sleep. Keeps us sleep shallow. But oftentimes it doesn't wake us up at all. So it also increases blood vessel tone, constricts the arteries, body responds with those same chemicals to redilate them. And the caffeine lingers in our bodies. Depending on what medicine we're on, it might linger for 3 hours or 56 hours, usually between 6 and 8 hours. But if you really think about caffeine, it ultimately perpetuates the disorder of abnormal blood vessel tone. Does any of that sound familiar? Does it sound like the exact same physiology of migraine itself? So caffeine withdrawal headaches are migraines. Now in med school they give us a kind of name and fancy stuff like, well, caffeine withdrawal headaches kind of, sort of, perhaps, maybe mimic migraine a little bit. Well, that's goofy. Caffeine withdrawal headache is a migraine. Throbbing, bright light aversion, loud sound aversion, migraine. Now how do people treat their migraines? Except for migraine and coffee and such. So you have a cause and a treatment. It's a trickster and it's a medicine. So now we have to move on to sleep, because we're going to think in terms of what what caffeine does to sleep. If you look at sleep, it's just basically an oscillation. You know, you go, you're awake and you're asleep, you're awake and you're asleep, and you just go sinusoidally like that through life. Cycle through this oscillation in what we call the circadian rhythm, and circa is Latin for about, and DM is a day, so the circadian rhythm. And this is just another paradigm here. I call it the kid on the swing model. If you have a kid on a swing and you give it a little push every time they come back, you keep the oscillation exactly where you want it. But you can do the same thing to sleep. Keep the oscillation where you want it if you follow certain rules that nobody knows. Okay, you're about to know more than 98% of all physicians right now. The push for your sleep-wake cycle is bright light at the same time every day. It's not the bedtime that our dads yelled at us to do. You know, we don't drive the sleep-wake cycle with bedtime, we drive it with bright light every day. Now, one thing I can go backwards. Talk about this for just a second. So it's a cycle. Awake and asleep with a push here every day with the bright light. Now, the big question is why the mule kick, you know? Why this dip here? I'm going to tell you something about the opponent process. There's a battle in our heads at all times. We're trying to respond to sleep debt, and we're trying to respond to a growing daily drive to be awake. Okay. Now, in the first 6 hours of the day, wakefulness is really greatly favored because the waking drive overwhelms the little amount of sleep debt we have. Late in the day, when the waking drive really peaks at about 14 hours, we're even overcoming a great deal of sleep debt. So what's this about? This is where this after lunch thing, everybody says, I just ate lunch, so I'm tired. Well, it's not because of lunch, and it's not because of a lack of caffeine. It's because we have sleep debt overwhelming our waking drive for a short time. This is a battle that sleep wins every day. But wakefulness pulls ahead a couple times. But this is an important slide to remember, because there are a lot of times that people are trying to go to bed too early, that kind of thing. So if we look at this is called the circadian dip right here, about 6 to 10 hours after we wake up. And then we have this evening rally where if you ever stay awake all day long, even though you're tired during this time, you ever feel like you suddenly get a second wind at the end of the day? That's because of this waking drive here. And everybody says it's because of the afternoon coffee. You know, they're giving caffeine credit for all kinds of stuff. And all right, so now let's take a little side very quickly. Same graph again. This little thing here, for the people who want to get up at 8 in the morning and go to bed at 10 hours before their wake time, they're not supposed to sleep for 2 hours. This is where the sleeping pill industry makes all its money, by people trying to drive sleep too early when they're more awake than they've been all day. So we won't harp on that for too long. This is a case that I see this case. I'll summarize this for you. You can read it. But there's basically people who are coming and saying, hey, doc, can I get a sleeping pill? Because, man, I just can't fall asleep when I go to bed at 10 and I get up at 11. They're going to bed at 11 hours before they normally wake up. And 11 hours before that time, they're just trying to sleep against the strongest waking drive they have. It depends on when I get to sleep. When you get up, well, it depends on when I go to sleep. That's when I know the patient's going to be okay, if they just understand something. And that is how they're supposed to regulate their sleep. You get up at the same time every day. You can't force sleep, but you can force wakefulness. You cannot force sleep. 95% of all physicians, and please forgive me, all physicians out there, because if I'm a neurologist and I have a patient who's got a bad raging ear infection, I'm going to run out and talk to a family doc and say, dude, how do I help this person? So we all have our things. But if you teach the patient that you push the swing by getting up at the same time every day, then they'll do a lot better. Very briefly, well, let's touch on what the sleep is. Now, when you're actually asleep, what's going on in your head? Well, we have stages. We have wakefulness, we have Stage 1 sleep, we get very little of that. Stage 2 sleep is supposed to comprise about 50% of our sleep. And then we have stage 3, or the slow wave or delta sleep, that occupies a lot of the first half of the night. And then we cycle through this rapid eye movement sleep where we dream. All right. Now, what does caffeine do to all this? Caffeine fragments the useful sleep. It fragments it by putting us into stage 2 sleep when we should be here or there. And it does so, usually, without waking us up. And that's where we get this notion that it doesn't affect our sleep. But it really does. If you're on certain medications, or if you have a caffeine half-life of 8 hours and you drink a cup of coffee at 8 p.m., half that caffeine is still there at 4 in the morning when you're trying to get through REM sleep. So there's just basically some advice here. Now, what I always tell patients, you want to reduce caffeine, reduce it slowly. If you drink 10 Mountain Dews a day, go to 9, stay there for a week. Take away the latest one, and then go to 8, stay there for a week. Through that mechanism, you're not going to have any kind of withdrawal, and you're not going to become disincentivized by dealing with withdrawal headaches. So you slow down the caffeine very slowly. Good sleep hygiene, basically 2 rules. Get up at the same time every day and don't go to bed more than 8 hours before that time. And that's it. Please look me up. All right? And please, shameless plug, a couple novels out there on Amazon. You can actually get these in hard copy. And that's it. Thank you very much.